Bemusement. Bemusement is a word. Nothing but.
Who knows? Who knows?
I do.
Dictionaries, are they even real?
Not anymore. Good to go?
Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order, this special regular meeting of Tuesday, November the 22nd at 4:30, and my apologies, I have the Nelson, shall we call it?
Yes.
Because it's not the COVID. So, I'd like to start with the Aboriginal Acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Ktunaxa, Syilx, and Sinix people, and is home to the Métis and many diverse Aboriginal persons. We honor their connection to the land and rivers and respect the importance of the environment to our strength as a community. So, I'd like to see the adoption of the agenda. Could I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Page, seconded by Councillor Payne. All those in favor? Okay, thank you. And first order of business is appointments. And so basically, at the beginning of the term of council, it is necessary to appoint council members to various committees, commissions, and boards. Appointments are made at the pleasure of council and can be changed during the term of council. And I just want to start by, as you go through the package there is a staff recommendation, and I will read it out, but number 11 of the staff recommendations there has been pulled out, and it will be a separate recommendation. The representative to the Ktunaxa-Kinbasket Treaty needs to be a separate motion of council. So we're just pulling out 11, and we'll do it, but I am now going to read all the committee appointments, because we're going to do them as a bundle. So, the following are that council make the below committee appointments, that Councillor Pinero be appointed to the library board, and that Councillor Payne be appointed as an alternative. That Councillor Woodward be appointed as representative of the Regional District of Central Kootenay Central Resource Committee. That Councillor Lockenberg be appointed as the representative to the Regional District of Central Kootenay West Kootenay Transit Committee. That Councillor Tate be appointed to the Nelson and Area Economic Development Partnership Advisory Committee. That Councillor Page be appointed to the Nelson and Area Economic Development Partnership Coordinating Committee. That Councillor Payne be appointed to the Cultural Development Committee, and that Councillor Page be appointed as the alternative to the Cultural Development Committee. That Councillor Woodward be appointed to the Emergency Management Planning Committee, and that Councillor Pinero be appointed as the alternate to the Emergency Management Planning Committee, and that Councillor Payne be appointed to the Nelson Housing Committee, and Councillor Page be appointed as the alternate to the Nelson Housing Committee, and that Councillor Lockenberg be appointed to the Advisory Planning Commission, that Mayor Morrison be appointed to the Tri-Cities as the Tri-Cities representative, that Councillor Tate and Councillor Pinero be appointed to the Grievance Committee, and that Councillor Lockenberg be appointed as the representative to the West Kootenay Regional Airport Advisory Committee. Is there a mover? Moved by Councillor Woodward. Is there a seconder? Councillor Page, and then any discussion?
I just want to clarify on the West Kootenay Transit Committee, that is not a regional district committee. There's a rep. The regional district appoints people on there. The city appoints our rep, and the Kootenay Boundary appoints their rep. So there is a West Kootenay Transit Service, which I don't think has a committee attached to it, but the committee, because I heard regional district there, so it would be just our
Right,
appointment to
sorry.
the West Kootenay Transit Committee.
Okay, with that, so we probably need to have an amendment there to what I've read. Because somebody will just amend and we'll strike regional district. That just will say Councillor Lockenberg is our representative to the Kootenay West Transit Committee. Okay, move that amendment by Page, seconded that amendment by Tate. Is everyone in favor with striking that out? Okay, all in favor. So we're back to discussion in general about the appointments. Any concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor of the current appointments? And that's carried. Thank you. Wow. So taking out, going back to number 11, and that is that we need that council appoint Councillor Payne as the representative, and the alternate will be Mayor Morrison to the Ktunaxa-Kinbasket Treaty Advisory Committee. I need a mover. Moved by Councillor Tate, seconder. Seconded by Councillor Lockenberg. All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you. Wow. That was the swiftest 13-point resolution I've ever seen. Don't think it's going to be like that all the time with me sitting in the chair, just in case anybody's getting any funny ideas.
Fingers crossed.
So, moving on to bylaws. We have a couple of 3 bylaws ahead of us. 5A is a Council Procedural Amendment Bylaw, number 3561 for 2020. And we're proposing the passing of the first 3 readings of this bylaw this evening. And that the summary is staff are introducing proposed amendments to the Council Procedural Bylaw to allow for some minor changes to Council's meeting procedures. Council Procedure Amendments Bylaw 3561 2022 is now presented to Council for first 3 readings. Now, Sarah, did you want to speak to this, or should we just get on with?
Agenda.
It's
I think we've got some redundant items.
The November 21st,
Yeah, that's not coming up for me,
yeah,
not the procedure bylaw.
It's under the 15th, it's still there. If you click the 15th link, yeah.
but is that the,
There we go. Okay.
that the one we need?
So I'll just, I'd like to let the public know that there's going to be some changes, or we're proposing some changes to the start time of the regular meeting and the committee of the whole meeting. And that would be to allow for a different procedure, I guess, for the listing of how things go in a meeting. So the start times would be changed from 7 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. And this allows for a city manager's report, council reports, potential for a staff workshop or education session. And so that would happen starting at 4:30. And then again, break for dinner and start the business portion of either of the meetings at 7 p.m. So if it's a regular meeting, all of the regular business that we see on the agenda would start at 7, such as bylaws, any requests, staff reports. And then if it's a COW meeting, we would have the 3 presentations, including a cultural presentation and public participation. So those are in a nutshell, the amendments, the proposed amendments to the procedure bylaw.
So we have before us the resolution. The first one is that the Corporation of City of Nelson Council Procedural Amendment Bylaw 3561 2022 be read a first and second time by title only. Is there a mover?
So moved.
Moved by Page, seconder. Moved by Councillor Woodward. Any discussion? Okay, I would like to comment because this is something that I have requested as the incoming mayor, is that there's been, I think, a bit of a difficult time with communication and public perception of when meetings actually start. And meetings have actually always started at this time, 4:30. We've just happened to call it a special meeting, and then we've normally gone right into an in-camera meeting. One of the things I talked about a lot, and everybody's heard me talk about, is that I feel that in terms of public perception, we need to spend less time in camera and be making sure that we're really focusing on what the particular sections are of the community charter that allow us to be in camera. And so we will be starting meetings basically at 4:30, as we always have, but we will be starting with the open meeting and then continuing on our business after the dinner break, and then if and when necessary, in-camera meetings will be held at the end of meetings, not at the beginning of meetings in hopes of also keeping them on task and brevity. So hopefully the community will find this a more engaging and open and transparent way of doing business here at the city. And just also in bringing in from time to time a periodic short presentation at the beginning to focus on something specific, and it might be a question that we've gotten posed as councillors in the community that needs to be answered, and meeting time would be a good time to have that answered, or to just look at maybe a specific role of somebody's job within the organization so that we can understand and appreciate the diversity of jobs that we have here in the city of Nelson, and that there's quite a bit to have the city run. So I'm really looking forward to these changes. So all in favor? Okay, and that's carried. And the second one is that the Corporation of the City of Nelson Council Procedural Bylaw number 3651, 2022 be read a third time by title only. Mover, Councillor Tate, seconded by Councillor Page. All those in favor? Okay, and that's carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 5B, Nelson Hydro rural rates. I see that Scott Spencer, the director of Nelson Hydro, is with us. And so the summary is on September the 23rd, 2022, and October the 21st, 2022, Nelson Hydro presented to council with regards to its 2023 budget and the corresponding need for an annual general rate increase from the rural service area. Council provided staff with direction to move forward with the implementation of a 9.87% annual general rate increase for the rural service area. So, if I can get I'm gonna get the first couple of readings on the floor here, and then we'll have Scott talk. So the recommendation is that the council passes the following resolutions. Number one, that the Corporation of the City of Nelson Hydro Services Bylaw Rural Rates Amendment number 3559, 2022 be read a first and second time by title only. Is there a mover? Moved by Page. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Woodward. Discussion, and perhaps before questions, I'll allow Mr. Spencer to give us some info. So over to you.
Thank you, Mayor Morrison, and it's a pleasure to be presenting to this council for the first time. So I greatly appreciate the opportunity. I will be brief. I just want to make sure that the new council understands the process and how we have arrived at where we are today with the bylaws. Of course, rates need to be approved as part of a bylaw, so this is a bylaw amendment to the Hydro Services Bylaw that we're requesting right now in order to approve our rates for 2023. Every year, Nelson Hydro looks at its expenditures and its projected income for the following year and determines our revenue requirements and whether a rate increase is required. This year is a little bit different because over the past 2 years we have been working with the BC Utilities Commission to establish a cost of service process that allows us to set rates in a fair and transparent way with the BCUC's approval for rural rates. We received approval of the COSA model in July, and we have used that to determine what the rates would be for 2023 by inputting the budget from our budget projections for 2023 into the new model. And recognizing that it is challenging times with high inflation and many people are struggling with day-to-day costs, we spent quite a bit of time taking a hard look at our expenditures planned for 2023 to ensure that we were delivering the value for service that our customers have grown to expect. We've been able to keep our operational expenses within 1.6% of the budget from last year from the utility as a whole perspective. However, there's a number of different factors that are playing into the rate increase that we've determined for the rural side, in that we automatically have to factor in Fortis BC's rate increase of 3.99%, what they're currently applying for at the BCUC. We also recognize that there's inflationary pressures, so those expenditures that we have, we've included a 5.35% inflation. And then that leaves us with, okay, well, what is really important to our community? And we've heard loud and clear over the last couple of years, especially with the storm impacts from 2021, that vegetation management and reliability throughout our rural service area is very important to our customers. So we are spending money in our vegetation management program. Now the cost of service model that we have developed inputs all those costs, and it essentially tells us what the rate needs to be as a result of that. Now, because the utility as a whole has been spending a significant amount of money on vegetation management over the past 3 years, that means that those expenditures, even though we're only going up by 1.6% in the past year from what we were last year, the rest of the utility has been absorbing a lot of those costs. So when we look at just the cost for service in the rural area, the result is a 9.87% rate increase for the rural customers. So it's a big hit. As I mentioned, we've done everything we can to try and keep that to a rate that's below 10%. That is we think is reasonable for the ratepayers to absorb.
Council, any questions?
Can I just add one more thing
Sure.
before? I think the other factor is this rebate through BC Hydro that will go through Nelson Hydro to all those customers, and to a large extent, it offsets that 9.87% for most customers. I think our average customer might cost another $40 a month, I believe.
Yeah, around $55 a month if you take it the average rural customer.
Right. So it has, that does help offset that additional cost. So as General Manager Spencer said, this is really a catch-up for 3 years because the COSA was done on 2019 numbers, and this is 2023 budget. So we have been spending that money on vegetation management. It just was never charged fully to rural customers, and now it's finally charged to those rural customers where those costs are being incurred. So right now, all those direct costs are being split between who incurs those costs. So the vegetation management costs within the City of Nelson are charged to the urban ratepayers, those that are incurred in that rural area, which is obviously substantially greater area with a lot more vegetation per customer is the challenge there, and that's really the difference, the biggest difference we've seen.
Questions? Councillor Woodward.
Thank you, Mayor. Through the chair, can you talk a little bit about, anecdotally, the vegetation management, in my experience, anecdotally, it's been much better. Storms have happened, power's not going out like it was once.
Councillor Woodward, sorry,
Yes.
can I just get you to?
Yes.
Thank you.
Can you talk a little bit about the effects of vegetation management from the perspective of the general manager of what's been happening for the rural community?
Yes, certainly. We've been watching our statistics closely to try and understand that. 2021 was an exceptional year in terms of storms, but our reliability statistics actually exclude major storms from the data, so that you can compare year over year without having a single or multiple significant events skew the data. And we were seeing a decrease in our reliability from 2016 through to 2020, and started to spend significantly more on vegetation management in 2019. So 2021 we made a significant jump up in terms of improving our availability to our customers, and 2022 saw another significant jump. So we are very close to, if not on the Canadian average. I don't know what the Canadian average is for for last year yet, because they have not published that data, but we're very close to that now. So we've made some significant strides in improving our reliability overall as a utility since 2021.
Thank you very much.
Questions? Councillor Page.
Thank you. Through the chair, we still understand that there is not quite the cost recovery that we're looking for in terms of meeting our return on equity. Do you have an idea of when the application for reconsideration is going to be adjudicated?
Yeah, so Councillor Page, you're absolutely correct. We have a number of items that we've identified from the order that was provided by the BCUC in July that we have requested an application for reconsideration. That will be submitted to the BCUC on December 2nd, and it will likely take a number of months before they make a decision on that. I don't have a clear understanding of what the process is, because until we submit, they won't outline that for us in terms of a timetable. But I expect it's going to take a number of months before we have a final decision from them on that. We have built into our application, our revenue requirements application, that includes the 9.87% increase, a request to establish a deferral account that would allow us to make any adjustments next year if anything that they decide impacts the rate that we have sought for 2023.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion on the table? That carries. Thank you. Moving on to recommendation number 2, that the Corporation of the City of Nelson Hydro Services Bylaw Rural Rates Amendment number 3559 2022 be read a third time by title only. Can I have a mover?
So moved.
Moved by Page, seconded by Woodward. Any further discussion? Anything come to anybody in that 30-second interval? Okay, all those in favor? And that's carried.
Can I just mention it, in terms of process for the rural rates, this is held at third reading, this bylaw, until the BCUC makes a decision on the rural rates, and when that happens, then it comes back to council to adopt. So we have to wait for the Utility Commission. On the rural rate, or I'm on the urban rates, that's strictly within council's domain, and so we have first 3 readings here, and Sarah probably covered this maybe in the orientation, is certain bylaws you can only do up to 3 readings at one session, and then it comes for adoption at a further council meeting.
And just to be clear with the council in terms of the timeline, we did request in our application for rates that the BCUC notify us by December 1st, so that we have time to implement an interim rate for the 1st of January, which is a directive that we received from them. So we should hear back from BCUC prior to that with their determination whether they've approved the interim rates as presented. So I'm expecting to come back to council for the December 6th regular council meeting to present that final reading.
Perfect. Okay, and 5C is the Nelson Hydro urban rates, so we'll be leaving General Manager Spencer right where he is. And so on September the 23rd, 2022 and October 21st, 2022, Nelson Hydro presented to council with regards to its 2023 budget and the corresponding need for annual general rate increases from the urban service area. Council provided staff with direction to move forward with implementing a 4% annual general rate increase for the urban service area. So once again, the council is asked to pass the following resolutions. Number 1, that the Corporation of the City of Nelson Hydro Bylaw Urban Rates Amendment number 3560, 2022 be read a first and second time by title only. Is there a mover? Councillor Payne. Is there a seconder? Councillor Pinero. And General Manager Spencer, do you have anything to say about urban rates?
Urban rates are a little bit different, so I probably should make sure the council is clear on how we're setting rates this year. This is the first time that we've done this. We've always set rates as a utility as a whole prior to this year. So because the BCUC has now established a process for us to set rural rates, it is make that process a little bit clearer for us. So once we've established the rural rates, then we look at revenue requirements for the urban side. And one of the major differences between the urban ratepayers and the rural ratepayers is the urban ratepayers are responsible for maintaining a capital reserve, or that's part of the mechanisms that council has approved in the past to allow us to ride through major expenditures over time, and to have reserves on hand in case of any unexpected or short-term expenditures that are required to keep the utility whole. So that reserve has traditionally been kept between $5 and $10 million. Because we are transitioning with the rural half of the utility to be more debt-based, we reduced that requirement to a band between 4 and 9 million for 2023. So to maintain that capital reserve is really the prime driver for urban rates when we look at the options in terms of maintaining a fair return to the city for the utility, and how we can set that. So I presented to council with our budget and how that came together a month ago, and the 4% is what I recommend given some of the risks and uncertainties that we have in the coming year around both capital projects as well as Fortis BC rate increases and other expenditures that we may not quite understand yet. We're in a dynamic world right now where the cost of transformers is, I think, up something like 200% in the past 6 months. So, these factors we're hoping are going to start to settle out in the next year, but we have a number of risks. So we feel the 4% is reasonable given the current climate that we have in terms of financial requirements, and will help us be prepared for the future.
Any questions on urban rates, council? Councillor Page.
Less of a question, more of a comment. I see here that we're having open houses. Do you want to speak to the dates that will be coming forward for the open houses?
Thank you, Councillor Page. That's a very good plug. Yes, Nelson Hydro is hosting a budget and rates presentation on December 1st at the Nelson Innovation Center, and my staff and I will be presenting some high level around the budget and the justification for the expenditures that we have planned for 2023, and discussing many of the rate setting principles that I've touched on here today with council, and open it up for questions from our customers and help them understand how it is that we develop rates and why the rates are what they are for 2033.
Councillor Payne.
I think this is a bit of a plug as well. When you came in for your presentation, Scott, you told us about the Instagram account that Nelson Hydro has started running. I've been following it and advising a lot of friends to follow it because there's so much information on there that helped me to better understand the vegetation management and the temporary outings and all of those things. So I hope this is an opportunity that I can utilize to say to people, go on the Instagram. They've got some fun stuff going on there, as well as go to the open house, because last time they had good snacks.
I was going to say they probably have good snacks.
They have good snacks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Payne. And yes, we heard very clearly from a survey we conducted this summer from our customers that they would like to hear more information about the utility, rate setting, vegetation management projects that we have ongoing. So we've been attempting to try and put that information out there on the Nelson Hydro Facebook page and Instagram account. So thank you for acknowledging that that's having some impact.
Any further questions, councillors? Seeing none, all those in favor of resolution number 1? Did you have a question?
No.
You're just ahead of I just caught you out of the corner of my eye. Okay. And that carries. And resolution number 2, that the Corporation of the City of Nelson Hydro Services Bylaw, Urban Rates, Amendment number 3560/2022, be read a third time by title only. Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Lockenberg, seconded by Councillor Page. Any discussion? All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you.
Mayor Morrison, the only one thing we didn't mention, which we normally do mention, is that our rates are still quite substantially less than Fortis BC and compare quite favorably with BC Hydro as well. So, so even with these rate increases, our rates are still quite fair. And, you know, BC has some of the cheapest hydro rates in the country as well, so.
Okay, moving on. Item number 6, a resolution to close the meeting to the public. A resolution is required. It is the opinion of the council that the public interest requires that persons other than members of council and staff and any approved audiences be excluded from this meeting and the special closed meeting of council continue under section 91 C, E, and G of the community charter to deal with matters related to the following: labor relations, litigated matters, and disposition of land or improvements. If I could have a resolution to move in camera. Moved by Councillor Lockenberg, seconded by Councillor Pinero. And we will take a couple minutes here to allow the people in the audience to leave before we start our meeting. And we'll see you back at